Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In a dimly lit guest room, sunlight struggled to penetrate the dust-laden blinds. An unkempt box, partially unpacked, sat in the corner, its contents a reminder of happier moments from a different lifetime. It had been 3 arduous weeks since this cramped space became their sanctuary, a reluctant haven after the financial storm that swept away their stability. "Are you nearly done with that?" A voice, belonging to a woman, interrupted the silence of the room. "We need to make space. Dad thinks we'll need to clear some to fit our things." A sharp breath was the only immediate response. Then, "Almost, Elaine." The voice revealed a familiar intonation. Fingers hurried away from the box, tucking it deep under the shadow of hanging garments. Married life, once a cozy alliance, had endured 5 years, but there were unsaid things, secrets not meant for the light of day, especially not in Stan's traditional household. "Benson?" Elaine appeared in the doorway, her brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Dad wants to know if you're using the tools. Something about fixing the porch light."
"They're in the garage, I think."
Benson stood quickly, brushing off dust from dark blue jeans.
"I'll go help him."
Elaine smiled gratefully. "Thanks. Maybe we can order takeout tonight? Dad's been cooking every night since we got here, and I know he's tired." "Sounds good." After she left, Benson's gaze drifted back to the closet where 4 unmarked boxes were stacked behind hanging shirts and slacks, a whole identity, compressed and hidden away. The move had been difficult enough without complicating it with truths nobody was ready to hear. Stan Peterson was old school in every sense, a retired factory foreman who still woke at 5 a.m., a widower who kept his wife's picture prominently displayed despite her being gone for 15 years. He wasn't an unkind man, just set in his ways and expectations. The way he saw it, he was doing what any father would do, providing shelter during hard times. But there were house rules, unspoken boundaries, and a rigid sense of order that permeated everything.
"Hold the flashlight steady, son,"
Stan muttered as they stood on the porch, the evening twilight making it harder to see the wiring.
"Can't see a damn thing when you keep moving it."
"Sorry." Benson adjusted the beam. "How's that?" "Better." Stan's weathered hands worked methodically.
"You looking for work tomorrow?"
"Got 2 interviews lined up. One at the tech firm downtown, another at Wilson's Accounting." Stan nodded approvingly.
"Good man. Can't let setbacks keep you down. My generation didn't have the luxury of wallowing."
The unspoken judgment hung in the air. 3 weeks of unemployment felt like an eternity under Stan's watchful eye. Later that night, after takeout containers were cleared and Elaine had fallen asleep, Benson sat alone in the small study that doubled as Stan's home office. The house was quiet, except for Stan's distant snoring. With careful movements, a laptop opened to job listings, but the cursor soon drifted to a folder tucked away in a hidden directory. Photos appeared, not the kind most would expect in secretive files, but images of someone with blonde hair cascading past their shoulders, wearing a simple black dress that complemented a slender figure. The face was Benson's, but transformed, softer, free. A long sigh escaped as the photos were closed and hidden away again. Living under Stan's roof meant more than physical confinement. It meant pushing Jasmine further into the shadows. "I'm going to need something from your closet, Benson," Stan announced over breakfast 1 week later. "That specialized wrench set I lent you last year. Got a leaky pipe under the kitchen sink." Elaine looked up from her coffee. "I can get it for you, Dad."
No need. I know right where it should be.
Stan was already heading toward the guest room.
Won't take but a minute.
Panic flashed across Benson's face.
Actually, I'll get it. I think I packed it in one of the... Nonsense. Finish your breakfast. I'm not helpless yet.
Stan's voice trailed as he disappeared down the hallway. The silence at the table was deafening. Elaine reached across, touching her husband's suddenly cold hand.
You okay? You look pale.
The sentence never finished. A loud thump from the bedroom, followed by the distinct sound of a box falling, sent Benson bolting from the table. Stan stood in the guest room, the closet door flung wide. At his feet, an opened box had spilled its contents across the carpet. Silky fabric in vibrant colors, makeup containers, a pair of silver stilettos that caught the morning light. Most prominent was a red party dress, its sequins shimmering accusingly in the sunlight.
What the hell is this?
Stan's voice was dangerously quiet. Elaine appeared in the doorway behind Benson, her intake of breath audible. Not shock, Benson realized with sudden clarity, but recognition, as if she'd somehow known or suspected.
Stan, I can explain,
Benson began.
These are women's things.
Stan picked up one of the silver shoes, holding it as if it might bite.
Is this some kind of joke? Are these Elaine's?
No, Dad, Elaine said softly. They're not mine. Stan's eyes narrowed, confusion warring with dawning comprehension.
Then, whose are they? You got some woman hiding in my house?
The moment stretched, taut and fragile. Years of careful concealment balanced against the impossible weight of truth. Benson felt lightheaded, the room seeming to tilt slightly.
They're mine.
The words emerged quiet but steady.
They belong to me.
Stan's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions. Bewilderment, disbelief, then something harder to read. What do you mean? Yours. I'm transgender, Stan. The sentence hung in the air, irretrievable. I've known for most of my life, but I've kept it hidden. From almost everyone. A glance toward Elaine, whose expression remained unreadable. My real name, is Jasmine. Stan placed the shoe back in the box with deliberate control. His jaw worked as if chewing through the information, processing it with the same methodical approach he applied to broken appliances. Finally, he straightened his back, looking not at Benson, but at his daughter.
Did you know about this?
Elaine stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm.
Not exactly. I suspected something. I found makeup wipes in the trash, noticed little things over the years, but we never discussed it directly.
Benson, or rather Jasmine, felt a wave of shame and relief colliding.
I was going to tell you both, eventually, when we had our own place again.
Stan picked up the wrench set that had started this cascade, clutching it like an anchor in rough seas. Without another word, he walked past them both, his footsteps heavy down the hallway. Elaine knelt beside the scattered contents, carefully beginning to place items back in the box. How long? She asked, simply. Always, but actively, since college. Jasmine joined her on the floor, fingers trembling as they folded the red dress. I'm sorry you found out this way. I'm not angry that you're transgender, Elaine said, her voice measured.
I'm hurt that you didn't trust me enough to share this part of yourself with me. It wasn't about trust.
It was fear.
Their hands met over the silver shoes.
I've been afraid my whole life of losing you, of disappointing everyone.
Elaine's eyes welled with tears.
We need to talk about this. Really talk.
But right now, I think we should give Dad some space. From somewhere in the house came the metallic sound of Stan working on the kitchen sink, his movements audibly more forceful than necessary. The house existed in a state of fragile tension for 3 days. Stan spoke only when absolutely necessary, retreating to his workshop in the garage, or finding sudden errands that kept him away for hours. Elaine moved between them like a diplomat, ensuring meals happened without confrontation, while trying to process her own complicated feelings. For Jasmine, it felt like living underwater, everything muted and slowed, waiting for the inevitable storm. The interviews had gone nowhere. The future seemed more uncertain than ever. On the 4th evening, Stan appeared in the doorway of the guest room, where Jasmine sat alone, staring at job listings without really seeing them.
We need to talk.
Stan entered without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind him. He carried 2 glasses of whiskey, offering one wordlessly.
Thank you.
Jasmine accepted the glass, noting it was the good bourbon Stan usually saved for special occasions. Stan settled heavily into the room's only chair.
I've been doing a lot of thinking.
He took a long sip.
And some reading, and I called Pastor Mike.
Jasmine tensed. Pastor Mike was old school like Stan, the minister at the Lutheran church Stan had attended for 40 years.
He gave me some perspective, Stan continued. Not what I expected, to be honest.
Another sip of bourbon. He told me to remember what Ruth told Naomi in the Bible. Whither thou goest, I will go. The biblical reference hung in the air, unexpected and puzzling.
I'm not a perfect man,
Stan said finally. When your mother-in-law died, I thought my world had ended. But I learned something important. Family isn't just blood. It's who stays when things get hard. He leaned forward, eyes direct, but not unkind.
I don't understand this.
He gestured vaguely toward the closet.
Never will, probably. But Elaine loves you. And your family now.
Relief loosened the knot in Jasmine's chest slightly. I appreciate that, Stan.
I have conditions,
Stan continued, raising a finger. First, I need to know what to call you. This Benson and Jasmine business is confusing an old man. Jasmine.
I'd like to be called Jasmine.
Stan nodded slowly, trying the name silently to himself.
All right then. Second condition. No more secrets in this house. We're all adults here. Agreed.
Third, if you're going to live as a woman under my roof, you do it properly. No sneaking around. I won't have whispers in the neighborhood about strange goings-on. Jasmine blinked in surprise. I mean, if you're Jasmine, then be Jasmine. Stan drained his glass. Half measures make for poor craftsmanship. That's what I always told my workers. He stood, straightening his back, as if preparing to lift something heavy.
This isn't easy for me, but nothing worth doing ever is.
He headed for the door, then paused.
One more thing. That red dress.
What about it?
Clara had one like it. For dancing.
A ghost of a smile touched his lips.
She looked beautiful in it too.
With that, he left, pulling the door closed quietly behind him. Jasmine sat motionless, the untouched bourbon warming in her glass, as unexpected tears blurred her vision. The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was deliberate. The next morning, Jasmine emerged from the bedroom wearing simple women's jeans, a cream-colored blouse, and minimal makeup. Her natural hair, blonde and grown past her collar over the past months, was brushed neatly but without adornment. Stan looked up from his newspaper, his only reaction a slight pause before returning to his reading.
Coffee's still hot.
Elaine smiled encouragingly, though tension lingered around her eyes. They were navigating new territory together, all three uncertain of the map. "I have another interview today," Jasmine announced, pouring coffee with hands that trembled only slightly.
The community college needs an IT administrator. You'll need transportation.
Stan folded his paper.
Elaine has her shift at the hospital. I can drive you.
The offer hung in the air, loaded with unspoken meaning, a public acknowledgement, a step into the world together. "Thank you. That would be helpful." The drive to the community college was largely silent, the radio filling the space between them. As they pulled into the parking lot, Stan cleared his throat.
People might stare, or say things.
Jasmine nodded, smoothing non-existent wrinkles from her blouse. "I know."
"If they do,"
Stan continued, eyes fixed straight ahead,
"remember you're a Peterson now, by marriage. We don't bow our heads to gossip."
It was as close to explicit support as he could manage, and Jasmine understood the effort it represented. "I'll remember that." The interview went surprisingly well. The IT department was less concerned with appearance than competence, and years of experience spoke louder than the name on older references. By the time Stan picked her up 2 hours later, a tentative job offer was in hand, pending background checks. "They want me to start next week," Jasmine explained as they drove home. "It's not the salary we had before, but it's steady work with benefits." Stan nodded approvingly.
"Honest work is nothing to sniff at. Clara always said the measure of recovery isn't getting back what you lost, but finding value in what remains."
That evening, Elaine returned from her nursing shift to find her father and spouse sitting on the porch, Stan showing Jasmine how to properly refinish the wooden railing. It wasn't perfect harmony, but it was a beginning, tentative steps toward a new normal. Later, in the privacy of their bedroom, Elaine finally asked the question that had lingered since the revelation. "Were you ever going to tell me? If Dad hadn't found your things?" Jasmine sat on the edge of the bed, removing small pearl earrings. "I wanted to, so many times, but I was terrified of losing you. I fell in love with who you are, not what you wear or what you call yourself." Elaine's voice was soft, but steady. "But marriage is supposed to be about honesty." "I know. I'm sorry." Elaine crossed the room, sitting beside her spouse. "I need time to adjust. This changes how I see our future together in some ways." "Does it change how you feel about me?" "No." Elaine took Jasmine's hand. "But it changes what I understand about you. That's not necessarily bad. Just different." She squeezed the hand gently. "No more secrets, okay? Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," Jasmine agreed, leaning her head against Elaine's shoulder, the blonde strands of her hair catching in the fabric of Elaine's shirt. The first day at the community college brought its own challenges. New identification was still in process, creating paperwork complications. Some colleagues were visibly uncomfortable, while others were awkwardly overcompensating in their efforts to appear accepting. By the end of the day, exhaustion had settled deep in Jasmine's bones. Stan was reading in his recliner when she returned home.
How'd it go?
He asked, without looking up. Complicated. Jasmine set down her bag. But I'm officially employed again.
Good.
Stan marked his place in his book.
That means we can discuss rent.
I was thinking 20% of your paycheck, considering utilities and food. The normalcy of the conversation was oddly comforting. No special treatment, no walking on eggshells, just practical matters between adults sharing a household. That's more than fair, Jasmine agreed. I appreciate everything you've done, Stan. Stan grunted acknowledgement.
Dinner's at 6. Elaine called to say she's working late. Some emergency at the hospital.
He returned to his book. Conversation apparently concluded. In the quiet of the guest room, Jasmine opened the closet, looking at the clothes now hanging openly, no longer hidden in boxes. Progress, albeit in small increments. The red dress hung at the far end, still unworn in this new chapter of life. Dinner was a simple affair. Stan wasn't much for elaborate cooking, but the conversation flowed more easily than expected. He asked practical questions about the job, offered advice about office politics, and reminisced about his early working days. Not once did he stumble over pronouns or the name Jasmine, though the effort was visible in his careful speech.
You know,
Stan said, as they cleared the dishes,
Clara would have handled this better than me. She always knew the right thing to say.
I think you're doing just fine. Stan shook his head.
I'm bull-headed and set in my ways. Always have been. But Clara taught me something important about love. It's not about understanding everything. It's about standing by people even when you don't.
He scrubbed a pot with unnecessary vigor.
When Elaine was 16, she dyed her hair purple and got that little tattoo she thinks I don't know about. I didn't understand it, but I loved her through it.
This is a bit different than teenage rebellion, Jasmine pointed out gently.
In scale, maybe. Not in principle.
Stan rinsed the pot thoroughly.
The world's changing faster than old men like me can keep up. But family is still family.
As they finished the dishes, Stan hesitated, then spoke again.
There's a VFW dinner next weekend. Retired guys from the plant go every month. Always bring spouses.
He dried his hands deliberately.
I'd like you and Elaine to come, as you are now.
The invitation represented a threshold, public acknowledgement beyond the safety of the house or workplace.
Are you sure?
Your friends might not understand.
Let me worry about my friends.
Stan hung the dish towel with precision.
You worry about finding something appropriate to wear.
These dinners aren't fancy, but they're not casual either. Later, when Elaine returned from her shift, Jasmine relayed the conversation. Your father never ceases to surprise me. Elaine smiled tiredly. Dad has always been more complicated than people give him credit for. When Mom was diagnosed with cancer, the doctors gave her 6 months. Dad learned to do everything. Cooking, cleaning, even how to style her wig when the chemo took her hair. Not because he understood what she was going through, but because that's what love meant to him. She kicked off her nursing shoes with a sigh of relief. So, the VFW dinner? Are we going? Do you want to? It would be our first real public outing together. Like this. Elaine considered the question carefully. I think we should. Not just for Dad, but for us. We can't hide at home forever. She smiled wryly. Besides, I'm curious to see Mrs. Abernathy's face when she realizes who you are. She's had a crush on you since we moved in. The shared laughter felt like crossing another small bridge together. The red dress, it turned out, was perfect for the VFW dinner. Not too formal,
not too casual, with its subtle sequins catching the light just enough to feel special without being ostentatious. Jasmine's hands trembled slightly as she applied mascara, the blonde hair that framed her face now styled in soft waves. "You look beautiful," Elaine said from the doorway, wearing a simple black dress that complemented rather than competed.
"Truly."
Stan appeared behind her, uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit.
"Car's warmed up. Best not to be late. They start serving the pot roast at 7 sharp.
The VFW hall was nothing special. Wood-paneled walls decorated with flags and memorabilia, round tables covered in white cloths, a small bar in the corner where older men gathered. As they entered, conversations didn't stop dramatically, but a subtle ripple of awareness moved through the room. Stan led them directly to his usual table, where 3 other couples already sat.
"Evening all. You remember my daughter Elaine."
He took a breath, then continued smoothly.
"And this is her spouse, Jasmine."
Mrs. Abernathy, a plump woman with carefully coiffed silver hair, was the first to recover from the surprise. "Lovely to meet you properly, dear. That shade of red is very becoming with your coloring." The ice broken, introductions continued around the table. There were curious glances, a few confused whispers, but Stan's matter-of-fact attitude set the tone. These were his people, following his lead out of decades of respect.
"Didn't you used to be—"
began one of the men, before his wife elbowed him sharply. "Yes," Jasmine answered simply. "I did." The man nodded slowly.
"Well, the pot roast here is still the same, at least. Best in the county."
It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was something, an acknowledgement of change while finding common ground in the familiar. Throughout dinner, Stan remained attentive, steering conversations when they became awkward, signaling with subtle gestures when someone crossed a line. After the meal, there was dancing, nothing elaborate, just couples swaying to music from their younger days. Stan remained at the table, nursing his drink and watching. "You should ask her to dance," Mrs. Abernathy told him, nodding toward Jasmine, who sat alone while Elaine chatted with old acquaintances. Stan frowned.
"That would be strange, wouldn't it?"
"Only if you make it strange." The older woman patted his hand. "Clara would want you to be kind. Dancing isn't romantic. It's just being human together." After a long moment of consideration, Stan crossed the room.
"Would you care to dance? These old fools are playing our song."
Jasmine looked up in surprise.
"Our song?" "Well, not ours specifically, but Clara loved this one."
He extended his hand awkwardly.
"You shouldn't have to sit alone at these things. That's not right."
On the small dance floor, they moved carefully, maintaining a respectful distance while finding a simple rhythm together. "Thank you for this," Jasmine said quietly. "For all of it." Stan kept his eyes focused somewhere past her shoulder.
"Family takes care of family. That's all there is to it." "Is it difficult? Seeing me this way?"
A long pause followed as Stan considered the question.
"Less each day," he admitted finally. "You seem more at ease. That counts for something."
As the song ended, he stepped back with formal correctness.
"You make that dress look nice. Clara would have approved."
It wasn't effusive praise, but coming from Stan, it felt monumental. 3 months passed. The guest room evolved, becoming more personalized as temporary arrangements settled into something more permanent. financial recovery was gradual. Jasmine's new position paid less than her previous career, and the housing market remained prohibitive for starting over. But other changes were more dramatic. Jasmine's legal identification now matched her true self. Her confidence grew, the careful movements of those first days giving way to more natural femininity. Elaine adapted as well, their partnership finding new dimensions and strengths. Stan remained Stan, practical, sometimes brusque, but consistently supportive in his own way. He built a vanity table for the guest room, installed better lighting for that makeup business, and growled at the mail carrier who delivered letters addressed to the wrong name. On a crisp October evening, as the three of them sat on the porch enjoying the changing leaves, Elaine made an announcement. "I've been thinking about the future." Stan looked up from his crossword puzzle.
"What about it?"
"We've been talking about saving for our own place again," Elaine continued, reaching for Jasmine's hand. "But I'm not sure that's what we want anymore." Jasmine turned to her wife, surprised. "It isn't?" "This arrangement has been good for all of us, hasn't it? Dad isn't alone, we're saving money, and we've found a rhythm that works." Elaine looked between them. "What if we made it permanent? Renovate the house a bit to give everyone more space, but stay together?" The suggestion hung in the autumn air. Stan set down his puzzle, considering his daughter's words. "I wouldn't want to impose," Jasmine began. "This was supposed to be temporary until we got back on our feet." Stan cleared his throat.
"This house has felt too empty since your mother died," he said to Elaine. "Too quiet. Having you both here..." He shrugged, uncomfortable with sentiment. "It's not bad."
"We could convert the attic into a proper master suite," Elaine continued, warming to her idea. "Give everyone privacy, but keep the family together."
"Family?"
Stan repeated, testing the word. He looked at Jasmine, his expression softening incrementally.
"Yes, I suppose that's what we are now, isn't it?"
Jasmine felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the evening temperature. "I'd like that, if you're sure." Stan nodded once decisively.
"I'm sure. But if we're renovating, we're doing it properly. No half measures."
Later that night, as they prepared for bed, Elaine wrapped her arms around Jasmine from behind. "Are you happy? Truly?" Jasmine turned in the embrace, her blonde hair falling forward as she leaned to kiss her wife. "Happier than I ever thought possible. This isn't the life we planned, but it's real," Elaine finished. "All of it. The struggles, the changes, the unexpected turns." "Do you ever regret it? Finding out? Having to adjust to all this?" Elaine considered the question seriously. "I regret that you felt you couldn't tell me sooner. But no, I don't regret knowing the truth. Or staying." She touched Jasmine's face gently. "You're the same person I fell in love with, just more honest now, more complete." From down the hall came the sound of Stan's television, the volume set too loud as always. A familiar, comforting sound that had become part of their shared life. "Do you think he's really okay with us staying?" Jasmine asked. "Permanently?" Elaine smiled. "Dad's not a man who says things he doesn't mean. If he says he wants us here, he means it." She moved to the closet, running her fingers along the red dress that now hung proudly displayed. "Besides, I saw him looking at renovation magazines this morning. He's already planning." Outside their window, autumn leaves drifted down in the darkness. Inside, In this unexpected sanctuary built from necessity and gradually transformed by acceptance, Jasmine felt something she had sought her entire life, the sense of finally, completely, being home. Not just in the physical space they shared with Stan, but in her own skin, in her marriage, in the truth of who she was. The journey hadn't been smooth or easy, with its financial setbacks and reluctant revelations. But standing in the bedroom with Elaine, knowing Stan was just down the hall, accepting if not always understanding, Jasmine understood that family could be rebuilt, just like houses, sometimes stronger than before. The red dress caught the lamplight, its sequins reflecting tiny stars across the wall, a reminder of what had been hidden, what had been revealed, and what had transformed along the way. Not just Jasmine, but all of them, finding new ways to define love, acceptance, and belonging. Stan's gruff voice called from down the hallway.
"If you two are still awake, the late movie's starting. It's that one with the dancing Clara used to like."
Elaine raised an eyebrow in question. Jasmine smiled, nodding. Together, they headed toward the living room, toward Stan, toward the future they were building. Unexpected but increasingly right. One day, one truth, one moment of understanding at a time.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!